Today, I'm going to teach you guys how to get the most FPS while also having the best visibility within Warzone and DMZ. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to give tips for both PC and console. So for PC, we're first going to head into settings and head to graphics. Now, keep in mind, console players, you definitely want to keep your eyes on this because some of these settings will be inside your console settings. So just match these to the PC. All right. Now, on the display tab, I have it set to full screen borderless. You're going to want to set this to full screen exclusive if you want the absolute most performance possible. But if you're like me and you have multi monitors, you're going to want to go with full screen borderless. The difference is pretty minimal, maybe about 5 to 10 FPS at most. All right. Next, we're going to make sure dynamic resolution is off. We're also going to make sure VSync gameplay and VSync menu is off. Then we're going to make custom frame rate unlimited. All right. If we don't have these three things set, it's going to cap our frames and we're not going to get the most that we can get. All right. Eco mode, minimal, really doesn't matter. And then lastly, we're going to want to touch on brightness. All right. Now, if we head into brightness, you'll see that I have it set to 55. It is normally set to 50 by default. You don't want this too high. You don't want this too low. If you have this too low, you're not going to be able to see dark skins in the game. If you have this too high, your game's going to look really foggy and washed out. It's also going to hurt your visibility. I like to bring this up just a little bit, though it may differ for you between different monitors and different TVs. 55 seems just right to me. All right. Next, we're going to head over to the quality tab. Now here on the quality tab, we're going to start with the first one. All right. We have quality presets set here. Now this is going to change to custom as we modify the settings below. So it really doesn't matter what this says right now, but if you want to have a good place to start from, just go to minimum. All right. After that, we're going to head down to render resolution. This is a super important setting, and this always needs to be set at 100. Okay. Never less, never more. I don't want to see anything else under render resolution but 100. Then we're going to go to upscaling and sharpening. Console players, I know that you guys have this as an option, and the option that we are going to choose is Fidelity FX Cast. All right. We have other options like FSR, NVIDIA image scaling, Intel XeSS, DLSS, but we don't want any of that. All right. First and foremost, those don't seem to even work properly within Warzone and DMZ. I don't know if that's because the game is simply more CPU bound or they're just broken, but they don't give a performance increase in this game. So you're immediately going to go with Fidelity FX Cast, and then you're going to click Show More. Now we have a strengthen bar here. All right. You're going to want to go anywhere from about 30% to 100%, whatever looks best to you. This is going to make the game super sharp and allow you to see things at long distances. All right. I prefer 100, but use what feels best for you. It's not going to impact your performance whatsoever. So just do what looks best. All right. Now keep in mind, you could use DLSS, FSR, etc. But again, they don't change your frames. They are not going to make things better. If you do tons of testing, you would see this. All right. I know it's weird. It doesn't make sense. Hopefully they fix it when they implement MW3 and everything like that. But even if they were working properly, if your machine is strong enough, you still don't want to run them because Fidelity FX Cast is going to give the best visibility, the best graphics in the game. All right. We're then going to move to anti-aliasing. For anti-aliasing, we do have the option of going SMA T2X. Now I want to talk about this setting. All right. If your machine struggles to run the game, like really struggles to run the game, which some computers do, maybe it's old, you're going to want to use SMA T2X and you're going to want to use low. All right. If you need the most frames possible, this is what you're going to use. But if your machine can handle it, if you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of FPS, all right, you're going to want to go with Filmic SMA T2X and you're going to want to go with normal. All right. This combination is going to give you the best visibility possible. I mean, a significant difference from the setting I just mentioned. But again, if your computer's older, feel free to use what I had just said. Now for video memory scale, it's honestly not that big of a difference. When the game first came out, it seemed to have made quite a bit of a difference, but honestly, I'd say anywhere from 70 to 90 is going to be fine. 80 seems to be the sweet spot for me, but it does differ from graphics card to graphics card, though again, I still don't think it makes much of a difference. All right. So go ahead and set that thing to 80. No big deal. We're then going to move into our details and texture section. All right. Texture resolution. I have tested this tons. I mean, I cannot express how much I have done testing with these settings, and normal is going to be the best. It's going to be the best bang for your buck between FPS and visibility. Anisotropic filtering is also going to be the same thing. You're going to want normal. Okay. Now, this one's a little different. For nearby level and distant level, you can actually set both of these to high, and you're almost going to have no impact on performance. though at the same time, graphically, there's almost no impact either. So I choose to go with low because I just want the best performance possible. You do whichever you want. If you prefer a little bit better graphics, go ahead, turn them on high. Doesn't make that much of a difference, all right? Cluttered draw distance. This one is it kind of debates how far things have to be before they pop in, all right? This game has terrible pop in, whether it's on short or long. The difference between these two is minimal, so I keep it on short so I have the best frames per second. Particle quality and particle quality level. These are huge. These are huge. These will destroy your frames, all right? So make sure this one is set to low and this one is set to very low. If you don't have these set like this, I'm telling you, these will just butcher your frames when there's a lot of particle effects happening. It's absolutely not worth it, all right? Bullet impacts has no performance impact pretty much, so keep that on. If you'd like to see them, keep it off. If you don't, really doesn't matter. Persistent damage layers also doesn't affect the game that much, but you do get a little bit of an FPS boost by having it off, so I go with it off. Now this next one is huge. This is one of the most performance impacting settings, if not the most, in the entire game, and that is shader quality, okay? One thing you need to know about this setting right off the bat is that between low, medium, and high, the visual difference is extremely minimal and it's not worth how much performance you would lose. So if I was to go from low to medium, I'm going to lose about 30 to 40 FPS. And if I went to high, I'm going to lose somewhere between 40 to 60 FPS. The difference is horrendous. But there is actually one thing that this heavily affects in the game, all right? And this is super important for, in particular, DMZ players. And that is that this setting actually affects thermal optics and how far they can identify targets with that thermal effect. So if you're really into thermal optics, especially during something like night mode that we have going on right now within Warzone and DMZ, you might want to set this on high if you're willing to sacrifice that performance for the benefits of the thermal optics. Otherwise, this stays on low, period. All right. Then we go to texturization, and this one you want to have off, all right? After that, we're going to get to a really controversial setting. This is called on-demand texture streaming. This has been a controversial setting since Warzone 1 when they implemented it. And the thing about this setting is a lot of people, when they have this on, they introduces things like lag and stuttering, because what this does is this downloads textures while you are playing. So it is using your internet as you are playing the game. Now, before I recently upgraded my internet, I always had this off because it did cause problems for me, but I now have fiber optics internet and I turn this on because it does make the textures on your gun look significantly better. All right. But for the majority of people that don't have fiber internet, I would absolutely turn this off. Or even if you have fiber, but you're on Wi-Fi, I would turn it off. I'm hardwired with fiber and it causes no issues for me, so I'm turning it on. But again, 95% of you turn it off. Consoles included as well. For streaming quality, we're also going to go with low, volumetric with low, deferred physics off, and also really important one, water quality. We got to have this set on default. If you have it on something higher, you're going to lose a lot of frames for it, okay? Then we're going to get into the shadow and lighting. And this is something you're not going to see very often as well. Shadow map resolution, we're actually going to want to set to normal. All right. The difference in frames between very low and normal isn't that much, but the graphical difference between very low and normal is quite a bit. We don't want to go anything higher because then we'll really start losing frames. At normal, I think we lose around somewhere like 3%, which isn't too bad for the graphical difference that it gives us. All right. For screen face shadows, we're going to want it to be off. For spot shadow quality, we're going to want this one to be low. And then for spot cache, we're going to want this one to be high. If you have this setting on low or even ultra, it is well known to cause stuttering within the game and overall just worse performance. Why that is, I don't know, but it's been an extremely tested setting and high is going to be the best one to go with. All right. Particle lighting, we're going to go with low. Ambient on collision, we're going to go with off. All right. Then we're going to get down to screen space reflections. You definitely want to have this one off. If you turn this one to normal or high, what's going to happen is on your weapons and on all sorts of other textures, you're going to see like this little like pixelated dust look on everything. If you like that, feel free to turn it on. It does make your gun a little shiny, but again, you're just going to have pixels everywhere, which drives a lot of people crazy. So I go with off. Static reflection, low, and weather grid volumes, low, even though honestly, I don't think this setting does anything from my testing. I've done it on ultra, I've done it on off. I don't think it does anything, honestly. And then for our post-processing effects, it's all going to be off. Depth of field off, world motion blur off, weapon motion blur off, and film grain to 0. These ultimately just hurt visibility massively. No matter how cool they might look to some people, they absolutely destroy visibility. Next thing we're going to move into is the view tab. Now, this first setting is one of the most important settings in all of Call of Duty, all right? And I need to stress this to a lot of you console players, okay? Because I get comments all the time of people saying, why does it look like PC players move so fast? And why does it look like they have less recoil, all right? It is this setting right here, all right? Field of view impacts a lot of things within first-person shooters. And in Call of Duty specifically, all right, what 120 or maximum FOV is going to look like compared to something like 90 is significant, all right? A lot of you, I believe, have a default of 90 or maybe even lower, like 60. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what yours is set to by default if you haven't changed it, but you want to crank this thing up. Now, I don't suggest everybody put it to 120 because there's pros and cons to this, all right? I would advise a lot of you actually start at 100 and decide somewhere between 100 and 120 what works best for you. I like 120. Now, I'm going to break down the pros and cons of this, okay? As you can see in this image on the right, the FOV is going to dictate how much you can see, all right? How much you can see around you. It's also going to shrink targets, okay? So this is really important. This is something you have to know. If you have 60 FOV and you look at somebody from 50 meters, they're going to be really big. If you have 120 FOV, they're going to look really small, okay? So the con to a higher FOV is that it is going to be harder to spot targets at farther distances. It's also in some sense going to be harder to shoot them because it's a smaller target. But there are also massive benefits, okay? Benefit number one, you can see on the sides of you better. So if an enemy is over here, you would be able to see them with 120 when you couldn't see them with 60. So you can turn and react and shoot them and defend yourself, right? Benefit number two, you get this nice feeling where everything feels really fast. It just feels better. You feel faster because that's how FOV works. You're not actually faster. If you put a person in 60 FOV and a person in 120 and they both run in a straight line, it's the same speed, but it looks completely different, all right? Go ahead and test it for yourself. Put your game at 60, start running. Open your menu back up, change your settings, put it to 120, start running. You'll immediately see the difference. There's just no question about it. Number three, and this is one I don't think a lot of people know about. The higher FOV that you have, the lower visual recoil you will have in the game. All right. So if what you can do is you can, get your kitted out, Hemlock or something and put your game at 60 FOV in the firing range and shoot. Just shoot, spray at the wall, and look how the recoil looks. Then put it to 120 FOV and shoot and look how the recoil looks. When you are so zoomed out and your gun and everything is smaller, you don't have the zoom, the recoil, everything. It's not magnified, right? You're backed up from it. It's not zoomed in and magnified. So it becomes easier in a sense to control. That's why recoil looks like less when you see players playing on a higher FOV. So it really helps towards visual recoil. So as we talk about the pros and cons, in my opinion, there are a lot more pros to a higher field of view than there are cons, right? The main con just being that targets are smaller and sometimes harder to spot or hit, right? But the benefits are huge, seeing on the sides of you, lower visual recoil, and overall faster feeling movement, which feels really fluid. All right, now for ADS field of view, you're gonna wanna set that to effective. For weapon field of view, I like to have this as default. You can use whatever you like. For third person field of view, max. It only goes to 90 and there's not many times we'd even use it. Vehicle field of view, set to default. Although if you've played Warzone or DMZ, you know that bugs out all the time. First person camera movement, you're gonna wanna set this to least, all right? And same thing with third person, all right? That's gonna be like the shake all over your screen. Again, those things just hurt your visibility, so we don't want that. For third person ADS transition, you can set it to third or first, doesn't even matter unless you're playing third person game modes. And for spectator camera, I would set that to game's perspective so that when you do go to spectate your teammates, it puts you in that first person perspective, all right? Next, we're gonna go over some color settings. So for color settings, you're gonna wanna head down here to interface, and then in this, we're going to go right down to this option here at the top called color customization. When we drop into here, you might have none set here. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go here and you're going to want to go to filter 2. You're then going to want to set this to both, and you're going to want to turn these both from whatever they're at to 100. All right, that's going to really increase the strength of color. And when you increase the strength of color in a game like this, that's really going to help you identify people. All right, this game is super washed and super gray, and when the whole game looks super gray, it makes it really hard to distinguish targets at a long distance. So by doing this, you're increasing the color, which therefore increases visibility at players at long range. Next, we're going to talk about something that is actually PC specific, but I'm going to tell you console players how you can accomplish this same setting. All right, so if you're familiar, PCs can turn up their color even more than just the in-game settings. Now, I have AMD. With NVIDIA, this would be different. You can look it up. It's not hard to figure out. All you got to do is go into your graphic control panel and find the color settings. So in AMD, that's going to be right over here. On the right side, we're going to go down to custom color. All right, now in custom color, what you're looking for is you're either looking for vibrance or saturation. If you're in NVIDIA, it's going to be vibrance. If you're in here, it's going to be saturation. Okay, so when I do this, when I turn this up to, like, let's say 50, that's going to give me 50% more color. It's going to make the game super colorful, making it really easy, again, to spot targets at long range. Now, what do you do if you're a console player, right? You're not going to have these settings. Okay, so what do? It's pretty simple. So if you're on a monitor or if you're on a TV, all you need to do is get your remote or, press the buttons underneath your monitor and find the color settings. All right, that might be the red, green, blue, or whatever. You just need to tweak your color settings and pick either a filter on your TV or your monitor that has more color, or manually go to the RGB and just turn those up. Maybe they're all at 50, turn them up to 75, all right, on your TV or your monitor. And that's gonna boost the colors for the game. It is also going to boost it for anything else you do. So if you don't like that boosted colors when you're watching TV, you're gonna have to turn it back down afterwards. But if you just use your monitor for gaming, or you just use your TV for gaming, go ahead, boost those colors up. It's gonna really help you guys. Anyways, I hope you guys appreciate this type of content. I hope this really helps you guys. These type of settings really do help you improve in the game and do a lot better. So if you did, make sure to drop a like and comment down below if there's anything else you guys want to see me cover. If there's anything that you're confused about in the game, anything other like settings and things like that, let me know and I'll see if I can cover it.